AskReddit by Mohammed Reddit. What's the weirdest job you had? I was a cook at a pool hall in the city where I grew up. After we closed down I would switch roles to play bartender for the owner and his closest friends who were mostly strippers and patrons from the nearby strip club. There were most certainly some other criminally organized types. Drugs were dealt and consumed, tricks were turned in the private side rooms, and I just kept the liquor flowing. I made absolute fistfuls of cash every night, was offered many and varied substances, I accepted nothing more than weed as I never touched the other stuff, and I hooked up with way more strippers than anyone really has the right to. Also, once a month they'd have drag shows which I ran the music for. It should be noted that while all this was going on I was 16/17. I was a fluffer. Utility worker in a slaughterhouse. Edit. It was the graveyard shift. We went in at midnight and worked until 8 AM. I'm a CSI, so maybe this one. You can't drop that and walk away. What's the most fucked up thing you've seen that you're willing to share? Census enumerator. You meet some interesting people doing that. I used to maintain the sewer for a retirement village. Old people flush the weirdest things down the toilet. Phone psychic. I lasted for 3 days. No, I didn't see that coming. And, no, I don't think I'm psychic. I don't think anyone is psychic. But it was the early 90s, and I was a college student who was always scrounging for cash. For a decent wage, no retail or factory work, and no conflicts with my class schedule, I figured could be psychic enough. I'd thought that psychics of all kinds made most of their money as novelty acts. You might hire a tarot card reader for your party, or call one during a night with friends. As far as I could tell, you wouldn't pay $5.99 a minute because you were desperate and in immense pain. Once I saw that this business exploited people's ignorance and suffering, I couldn't stay. Programmer for the US Navy Warfare Simulation System. Think War Games movie. Working with the SME population, seriously mentally ill, like schizophrenics, ASPD, bipolar, BPD. Fucking horrible and I hated it but it's favorite job. I used to wear myself out trying to use logic and reason with schizophrenics tired, confused at end of the day. Eventually I learned not to argue. I couldn't control them, I could only control me. My current job in pest control, job itself isn't necessarily weird but get in a lot of weird situations. A person paid me to stalk them and send harassing letters, all totally legit. What's the backstory? I perform autopsies for a living. It's pretty weird I guess. I've seen a lot of fucked up things and then had like a normal day after I left work. I worked at a natural history museum store, not associated with any museum. This was 2005-ish. I was a tiny little white girl with purple hair, and my job included helping feed the store's 14 pythons, their subsequent food, mice. We also sold feeder mice and part of my job was cleaning their tanks. But my favorite part was cleaning the human bones we got from China. I mostly cleaned skulls but I did help articulate spines. We primarily sold them to UC Berkeley, but the occasional eccentric person would buy bones or even a whole skeleton. One time a guy asked for one to be mounted from the feet so he could keep the top hat on him XD. We also would taxidermy pets for people, which was cool and honestly heartwarming. It was a real test to introduce my then boyfriend to the back room one day when my co-worker was working on a particularly large dog. Good times. I've seen lots of weird stuff back when I was a prostitute. Used to work for a locally owned Japanese food place. It was kind of like Waba Grill. The owners wanted to put as little moe into it as possible, so there were only 2 of us there at a time. The guy I was always working with was this dude named Jeff. The job itself wasn't weird, but that guy was. Managed it for a nuclear plant. Rim. I was a DJ for a senior living and I would play hardcore rap and trap music and techno. And no one would say anything. Making pipes out of elk antlers for a head shop. I used to help self-published authors create and promote their content. If you're a fan of narcissists, schizophrenics, or con artists, get into the self-publishing biz, those people are wild. Door-to-door music salesman. Nude transvestite masseurs. I got paid a lot, but I still say it's impossible to be a nude transvestite. When I was 22, I took a few days vacation to work a gig as a target in a dunking tank at the state fair. You sat on a plank above a tank of water, and people paid to throw baseballs at a target while you harassed them using a microphone connected to the sound system. If they hit the target, the plank swung away and dropped you into the water. It made me reevaluate my career choices, because it was more fun. I hated my regular job, and it paid more. Got a summer job in 2010 as a maintenance tech for a poultry research lab. Thought it would just be repainting coops and stuff like that, and some days it was. Other days you were heaving 50-pound garbage bag after 50-pound garbage bag of dead chickens into the incinerator. I can still smell that smell 14 years later. Not me, but a friend was a koala spotter for a logging company, had to mark the trees that had koalas so they weren't cut down.